Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Jared at 3Cs. Today we're going to rebuild Braxton's GasGas. This is an 85cc two-stroke. He's going to get an all-new top end. This bike has just under 60 hours on it, and there's 4 races left in the season. Want to make sure we get there. Bike's been great, 0 issues. It's just time to do a top end, so let's get into it. Just to give you guys a rundown of what we have on the table. We have the GasGas manual. This is for the 85cc two-stroke. New air filter. Got some gloves. Got a random assortment of tools. I'm sure we'll need more stuff as we get into it. And I'm really picky about running actual OEM top ends. I like OEM pistons and needle bearings, so that's what we have here. And what's funny with the GasGas KTM Husqvarnas is there's a 1 and a 2. And we had to use a bore scope to look down in the cylinder to see what it is, because the only way to know what piston you need is on the top of these GasGas. As you can see right there, it has a 1 on it. And so we needed a 1, I believe, as long as my camera led to me in the right direction. A new gasket set, and I always do the power valve gasket because these little things, the power valve cover gasket I should say, they always seem to kind of get crummy after a while. And then just some new coolant. We like engine ice, some new rags here, so let's jump into it. The first thing that we're going to do is remove the seat, gas tank, and exhaust, so let's get there first. Okay, Braxton's gas tank should come off. I got the front bolts loosened, seat bolt, and then we just took his fuel line off. And we did wash under here, or we washed the bike as good as possible, but we're going to do some more cleaning real quick because we don't want any dirt down inside that cylinder. So with us doing hair scrambles, and it's been so muddy this season, we're going to take a minute, we're going to get this all cleaned up. I always think it's important to take a few seconds there to really clean everything. We don't want any dirt or debris from up here to fall down in our work area. And I always use like some cleaner, and then I use like an air jazzer so we can really blow every little spot out, make sure there's no loose dirt. And so the next thing we're going to do is drain the coolant. With the pipe removed and the coolant drained, we can take our coolant hose out. We'll do that next. Now that the coolant hose is removed, we're going to remove the upper engine mounts. We have the engine mounts removed. We're going to take our spark plug out. With the spark plug out, we're going to take our power valve covers off. We have 1 on each side. Good. Next thing we remove is the power valve breather tube off the top of the cylinder. We are now ready to remove the cylinder head. There's 6 bolts, so we'll take these out. Let's see if we can get that head off of there. It's like it's been burning really clean. That's awesome. Looks really good. It's important to make sure we take our dowel pins out and save these. We'll put them right in the cylinder head so we have them for install. So what we're going to do before we move our cylinder is to check the decking on here. I don't have the actual KTM tool to see where the decking needs to be. So let's rotate this to top dead center here. And that's too far. So we're going to come back down and do it one more time. I'm just using the kick lever. And so right there you can see that piston is decked. And it is just barely sticking out the top of the cylinder there. So there's a little bit of clearance. We're going to measure our base gasket when we put it back together because we're not actually changing the cylinder. So as long as I match the base gasket to the same exact thickness, when we reinstall it, we'll know that we have our decking correct. It's just really good to have a visual on this to make sure you know somewhat where it needs to be. We now need to remove our power valve linkage. So we're going to take this little pin here, pull it around the side. This is keeping that power valve arm on the And then the ball socket, let's pull this over here. You can see this little guy here. We're gonna be careful with this not to lose it. That had to come off first. And then now we can pop this right off the socket. We can now go ahead and remove our cylinder. What we're going to do first is remove this little gasket. This is that new one of these that I got. Sometimes these get really crummy and they get dirty in the backside. That's just the nature of them. So we're going to carefully clean this really quick before we take the cylinder off. We should now be able to pop the cylinder off the cases. I'm going to break it free a little bit. I'm going to put the cylinder, I'm going to put the piston at the bottom there. Just crank it over so I'm not trying to get so high with it. Go a little bit lower with it. There we go. At the top. With any luck, this should be really clean, and be careful when you tip this because there could be coolant and stuff in the passages. This bike didn't really give us any trouble. We just wanted to replace the piston. Looks really good in there. One little spot there, but that's nothing to really worry about. Kind of cleans up with your finger as soon as you touch it. So the bore looks really good in there. It was burning really clean as well. So the piston looks great on top. And so what we're going to do is pop that piston off there next. To get the piston off, we're going to rotate it all the way up here. And then always take a brand new clean rag. We wrap it around the connecting rod. That way we don't drop our circlip down into the engine there. So now we've got that perfectly covering all of our holes here. We can now see in the side here is going to be a circlip. You can just use a pick tool. There are nice tools you can buy to help remove these piston pins if you need to. I got a 9mm socket, and this one's giving me no trouble. So just pushing it straight out. And that was our 9mm there that we had on the back side. Here's our piston that came out of the bike. Starting to have a little bit of scoring, probably got hot at one or two of the races. And we're gonna clean this to make sure that it is a 1. We're gonna clean the top of this off. What we did is we took it a second to inspect everything, and you can see the O-rings on the head were still in great shape. There was no blow-by on any of them, so no coolant was getting into the cylinder. We went ahead and we ball honed this for about 45 seconds just to get the glaze off of it. Nicocil, you don't want to do a lot to it, but you can definitely get the glaze off. So we got a nice cross hatch again. Looks great in there. Got rid of any kind of little scoring marks that were starting to appear. And next thing we'll do is put our needle bearing back in, a new one. This is a new OEM needle bearing. I'm a big fan of all OEM replacement parts. And what we're going to do is our two-stroke oil that we use is the Motul 800. And so you want to coat all the parts really well in oil when you put them back together. So I've got a cap full of it right here. I just set it right here. I'm just going to kind of soak this down a lot. We're going to slide it right into the connecting rod there. We'll take a moment and feel the crank. It all feels really good, no slop and no play. And we're going to peel this base gasket off of here. So the first thing we're going to do is check our piston ring end gap. So what we do is we set the ring right in there, and we take our new piston, and we're going to push it down in so it's flat, less than an inch. We want to make sure it's flat down in there. And what we're measuring for, and every manufacturer is different, so check your bike, and every model year could be different. That's our ring end gap. You can see we want to make sure that it's not touching or that it's not too big of a gap. This one's perfect. We checked it. It's within spec. You just take your feeler gauges and you grab the right one and you just slide it through and you make sure that it's got clearance there. So that's your ring end gap. So that's all set. We can get ready to reassemble. We're now ready to install the piston on the connecting rod, and we got our arrow facing forward. So we just point that toward the exhaust. So it's going to go forward in this motor. And I'm just going to set that there because we're going to soak this in oil first. Take that same two-stroke oil that we were using a second ago and really coat it really well. And we're also going to coat the outside of the piston. Before we coat the outside, we're going to put our circlip back on this side of the journal. What we're going to do now is measure our base gasket thickness. If we put this in here, roughly like 0.74 is what we're coming up with. And there's 4 different sizes that come in this kit. You can see some of these are really thin, 0.41. This one's even thinner by the feel, 0.32. And I don't know if I just did this one for an example, 0.49. And this is the thick one. This is what matches what comes out of that bike. So right there, it's perfect. That's exactly what we were looking for. So we can use this base gasket and get rid of our old one. We're gonna go ahead and remove our clean rag. Our piston's been coated pretty well. And then we're gonna set our base gasket on here, make sure it goes down right. Just kind of have to have a look at it for a second. Make sure everything looks like it should. Slide it down nicely. We got our dowel pin centering the gasket like we need it to. We're now gonna coat the inside of our cylinder with a ton of 2-stroke oil as well. That way it goes together nicely, and upon startup it's got plenty of lubrication in there. We'll flip it over. Got all of our surfaces cleaned up for where our base gasket's going to sit on both the cases and the cylinder. And so now what we have to do is make sure our rings are pinched, and we do have that center point in the back. The centering rod for the ring there, you can kind of see right there in that groove. That's where the ring needs to sit, is right there. So I usually like to take this and push down on it, get it down toward the bottom more. I'm going to come in from the top with this. We're now going to reinstall our cylinder bolts, and these get torqued to 17 foot-pounds. For this specific model, you should definitely check your manual and make sure that whatever your bike calls for, you torque them down to spec. So now that we got these bolts torqued, we're going to check the decking to make sure it looks somewhat similar to what it was before. Try to get this thing right to top dead center, right about there. And you can see, and if you rewind the video, you'll see it's really, really close. It's about perfect to where it was before. I'm pretty confident we got the right base gasket in there right away. So now we're going to reassemble our power valves. We're going to take the new gasket, we'll grab that, and we'll get it slid in there. We got our new grommet for the bottom of the power valve cover. I like to do new ones of those, and I grease the bottom of it, that way no dirt gets down in there. And I got our new gasket on here as well. It's important I do that before I reconnect our power valve. So we're going to slide that on. We're going to grab our clip, reinstall this. That way the power valve arm doesn't come off. We're going to slide it around this way. And now we can put our cover back on the outside here. We're going to put our second power valve cover on. These don't get torqued very much. It's like 4 or 5 foot-pounds. So we just kind of do it by hand, nothing special. So we'll get this one on as well. We're now ready to put our cylinder head back on, and I'm just going to put the dowel pins into the cylinder first. Put them down in there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grease our O-rings. We got the 2 new O-rings here. So I'm just going to put some grease here, kind of work around it, and lay it in its groove on the inside there. The grease just kind of helps hold it. That way I know when I'm installing it, we don't have any kind of issues with it kind of popping out of place and letting coolant by. So we're going to pop this in here first. And we can kind of get ready to center our head back on there. Those went in and laid in nice. So when reinstalling the head, I like to screw the spark plug into the inner dome because it's a separate piece on the inside, and this will let me help hold up on it. And I always buy new crush washers because these don't come in your gasket kits. So I always do 6 new ones of these. And I get 2 of them ready. We do have our centering pins there. So what we're going to do is kind of guide it down on here. And our water jacket goes toward the front. So we're going to set it down on there. I'm holding up on the spark plug. I'm going to start to thread in these 2 bolts. Just that way it really centers it. I know the dowel pins are doing their job, but we're going to get these in. And on this GasGas model, it's only 8 foot-pounds for these. Just check your manual for what you have. And we're going to get all 6 of these in and torque them down. Okay, we're going to take our power valve vent, reinstall it. The GasGas is nice. It has like a little guide here for it, so we know it's guided down nicely and into it. We'll go over there and get our coolant hose on. Okay guys, that's going to wrap this video up. We have the top end back together. Everything is torqued. Now one thing, come on in here Braxton and show this. So depending on the brand of bike you have, this is a bleeder for the coolant. So when we fill this with coolant, because this is the high point, higher than where the coolant's going through here, there could be an air pocket. So make sure you read your manual on your bike. We have to crack this when we put the coolant back in. Obviously we have the engine mounts, we have the gas tank, we have the pipe, and the seat. So thanks for watching. Hope you guys found it helpful. Enjoy the ride and we'll see you on the trail.